start with you. How has this news been received in Burundi today?
Well, people in Burundi are kind of very surprised and they're devastated. We do not understand how, first of all, how can we put a country like Burundi, where the government is killing its own people, make this country member of the AU Security Council? Second, we need those troops to protect our civilians, and the way it was rejected by the AU is, we don't understand, and we're shocked.
All right, Mo, I'll come back to you in just a moment, but I just want to bring in Harun Dubi, who's a lawyer joining us here. He's a Kenyan human rights lawyer as well. Harun, your response or your comment to this, it looked like things were moving pretty fast, and then we got to the AU and nothing.
Well, excuse me, the African Union, I think, has completely failed the people of Burundi because there was a decision earlier by the African Union to deploy security or peacekeeping mission in Burundi, and in the summit that is just concluded, they decided to rescind that decision. Well knowing that the people of Burundi are suffering, we have been seeing tens of, if not hundreds and thousands of them, crossing the lake to Tanzania. And more especially because the Constitutive Act of the African Union provides for, against non-legal transfer of power or non-legal assumption of power. What Pierre Nkurunziza did was to assume power contrary to the constitution of Burundi, of the Republic of Burundi, contrary to the Arusha Agreement, and the African Union needed to have advised him not to seek a third term so that he can secure the peace and prosperity of the future of the people of Burundi.
Okay, so Harun, I understand what you're saying about the African Union having failed on several counts leading up to this decision. Mo, obviously you're talking about the residents and the citizens of Burundi being quite disappointed. I'd like to talk about the state in Burundi as we speak. Could you describe that for us? Last week we heard about foreign journalists who were detained briefly and then released. Could you paint the situation for us there now? Could you also speak to us about freedom of the media? We understand journalists have been attacked or the subject of attacks quite recently.
To summarize, the situation in Burundi is dire. The situation in terms of human rights, in terms of security, in terms of safety of individuals is completely dire because we have been reading reports about militias or state state military brutalizing journalists, brutalizing people they consider to be in opposition, as if opposition were an illegality, yet opposition is recognized in Burundi under the Burundian law. And we have seen human rights activists and human rights defenders being targeted for either elimination or being silenced, and others are disappeared. So it is actually a situation which one must fear might be going towards where Burundi and Rwanda came from in terms of genocide. Okay. It is something that I would expect the African Union and the United Nations, indeed, to take very quick steps to ensure that the safety and rights of citizens in Burundi is protected.
Maintained. Okay, Harun, I'd just like you to hold your thoughts for just a moment. Let's speak to our journalist who is joining us. Mo, could you paint the situation for us right now in Burundi as regards freedom of speech?
Right now, well, first of all, 95% of journalists fled the country. The only radio and TV station that is broadcasting belongs to the government. So they broadcast what the government want people to hear, of course. And when it comes to security, every day we wake up in the morning with dead body killed, every morning. And since like 2 or 3 months ago, it's kind of shifted because now they are targeting one ethnic group, which is the minority ethnic group, the Tutsi. It looks more like a genocide. They started around November, December, and now it is intensifying. Why? We don't know. So now that all the medias are out and the civil society also is been chased. The government can do whatever they want to do, kill whoever they want to, without nobody reporting it. And second of all, there's something new that they're using to repress the opposition. They call it rape as a weapon, which was unheard of in Burundi. So now they are raping women, targeting one ethnic minority. And so yeah, people talking about the civil war or the threat of a genocide, but it happened before. It started already like 2 or 3 months ago. The country is already poor. It's like the poorest country in the world or the second poorest country in the world, but still those people who are in power are still looting the country. So people are confused, they're afraid. Remember that we have around 250,000 refugees outside of the country in Tanzania, in Rwanda, Congo, and they're living in terrible conditions. All of that because Nkurunziza wants a third term, which is illegal.
All right, you're painting an interesting scenario about rape, which we all know is a very powerful tool of war that has just been introduced in the crisis in Burundi, and that's something to definitely follow up on. But I'd like to hear your thoughts, because this is what President Pierre Nkurunziza said in Burundi regarding the peacekeeping forces that were set to come in. He said nobody from the AU went into Burundi on the ground to get a very clear picture of what is going on, as compared to the United Nations Security Council that did the same, and they in fact thanked them. Do you think then the AU could have done that in a bid to sort of get some sort of buy-in from Pierre Nkurunziza? Do you think they made this decision without all the necessary facts?
I don't know. It's kind of confusing because I think he built his own network. There are other presidents in the African Union who are like him, who wants a third term. There's a president who are there for more than 20 years, 30 years. So I think he made a diplomatic victory by doing his own network, working his own network. I think that's how we got it, but we shouldn't wait for him to send troops to save the situation. We should send troops as soon as possible. It helped save the genocide that was going on in Darfur. It helped save the genocide that was going on in Yugoslavia with Milosevic. So we don't need Pierre Nkurunziza to give his point of view on that. People are dying by the thousand, and a genocide is taking place right now, which is the most important. Can you imagine?
All right, is that how you would describe it, as a genocide? We've heard several terms, but everybody seems a little queasy
I just came from that country a month ago, and what I was witnessing is a genocide, because now they are targeting the ethnic Tutsi, not anymore the Hutu, but the ethnic Tutsi. They changed this like 2 or 3 months ago, and they're being killed by the thousand. And those who are not killed and who are tortured, believe me, they are now castrated and been released, which was unheard of in Burundi before. So now we got two things. You got rape and castration, targeting the ethnic Tutsi. Some Hutus, of course, are victims, but the big majority, like 90%, are Tutsi.
Okay, stay with me, Mo. We'll come back to you in just a moment. Harun, you're hearing this from someone who is in the country or has been in the country up until recently. What about the AU? What about the East Africa community? We've just seen the East African Legislative Assembly discussing this at great length. Are we taking time? Are we mislabeling this a genocide? We have been accused of doing that by the Burundi government.
I think the African Union and the East African community have completely failed the people of Burundi in this case, because one person dying, 2 people dying, a dozen dying, hundreds dying is completely unnecessary and needless. It is not excusable that we have a political union of heads of state who sit together as members of a club and accommodate each other, notwithstanding the atrocities being committed. Remember that in Burundi, there was already an AU decision to deploy forces there. And suddenly, because Nkurunziza has refused or opposed it, they have rescinded it. That means to me that they are more concerned about a collegial survival as heads of state, notwithstanding the suffering of their people. These heads of state are building edifices and finances for themselves without caring about the welfare, security, and safety of the citizens of East Africa, citizens of Africa. The AU, mark you, has not yet sent even a fact-finding mission. We remember, I do recall that Kenya at some point sent our foreign affairs PS, but I do not recall that there was any formal fact-finding mission that has been conducted by the African Union or the East African Community, which would then assist in making decisions.
Okay, all right. Harun, I'd just like you to hold that thought there, because that's an interesting one, and we'll have you a little bit more to talk about just what else was discussed at the AU summit that just concluded last weekend. Harun, stay with me for just a moment. We'll come back to you. Moby, I'd like to let you go, but just from you, a Burundi citizen, what is it you want from Africa? What is it you want from the East African community? What sort of solutions are you seeking?
Number one is to get Pierre Nkurunziza, which is a madman who's killing his own people. Number two, protect the citizen of Burundi, help protect at least. But the first thing we need to do is to get him the way we got Milosevic or Saddam Hussein or whoever, because it's going to have a big impact not only on Burundi, on the East African community, but in the whole Africa. It would be a shame to have, in 2015, a genocide going on before our own eyes. 20 years after the Rwandese genocide, when we said never again. And the other thing is that AU is not going to send troops, but the UN is ready to send troops, and they have troops on the border.
Right.
We call them MONUSCO. It's on the Congolese border, so they can enter Bujumbura within minutes. So it would be a shame for Africa to let the UN handle it instead of Africa. Where is our pride?
Absolutely. I think that's a good way to leave it with you. We thank you for your time, and we hope you stay safe. We've been speaking to Mo there. As you can see, we're not revealing his identity for the safety of his family and his relatives, and he's a Burundi citizen, just talking to us, giving us reaction on that that came out of the AU. They're saying not just yet with the peacekeeping forces, but they will be sending in a special delegation, fact-finding mission, like Harun Dubi has been telling us. We'll go back to the AU in just a moment, but let me just remind you where we came with this situation in Burundi. This is where we were. In April 2015, we remember the protest that erupted after the president then announced that he will seek a third term in office. Remember, he said the first term didn't count. May 2015, just a month later, a constitutional court ruled in his favor, even though there were many reports of judges being intimidated, and people then started to flee, and we saw lots of protests. And this situation continued to escalate, as we will see in just a short while, degenerating to the situation that we find at the moment. Of course, army forces then led by Godefroid Niyombare launched a coup attempt that failed. Remember, he was away for a summit. A month later, in July, the elections were held. President Pierre Nkurunziza was re-elected. Polls were disputed, not just by those within Burundi, but all around the world. And this is interesting. Opposition leader Agathon Rwasa described it as a joke. And then, of course, things again. November 2015, the Burundi government gave those opposing him 5 days to surrender. You remember this one. Sent chills down the spines of a lot of people around the world, promising a crackdown. Also in the same month, the UN warned that it was not equipped to deal with the crisis that was coming out of Burundi. And this was just last year. And then finally, excuse me, in December of last year, we heard about the horrific situation. 87 people were killed in a day. In January 2016, that's this year, Amnesty International published those images, and we showed them to you, believed to be mass graves that were close to where the December killings took place. So all of these situations that are coming out excuse me, of Burundi, we wait to see what happens with that fact-finding mission. Hopefully, out of that, in the UN Security Council one as well. We want to move on with other stories that are making headlines, and we'll come back to the matter regarding the AU.